Hey everybody, it's Kathleen Gage again with Power Up for Profits and the 100 Club, where we help bona fide experts find 100 podcast shows in record time so that they can amplify their visibility. I stole that amplify from my good buddy Brian G. Johnson. He teaches people how to really amplify what they're doing. And my good buddy Brian Basilico, he is going to share with you today how to amplify your visibility through podcast interviews. Let me tell you a little bit about Brian. We've known each other for quite a few years. We go way back to the niche affiliate marketing conferences and a few other conferences where we just immediately hit it off when we met. I've seen Brian in all his glory, dancing and singing and playing drums and doing whatever he does. He's just amazing. But he started his podcast show, the Bacon Podcast, 5 years ago. And he just crossed the 500th episode. So this guy really knows what he's doing, and that's why I wanted to interview him. I wanted to get his take on what it takes to be a really rock star guest on a podcast show. So, Brian, great to have you here.
Kathleen, it is always a pleasure to talk to you. So I'm digging it.
Well, let's talk.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about how you started in podcasting, because I remember when you started the show, and back then you were as green as they come, and you quickly hit the ground running, and now you're considered one of the forces to be reckoned with. So
absolutely. Yeah, well, I mean, a little bit of background without getting too deep is I owned a recording studio years ago. So I was in the audio business. I was in the video business. So I loved doing it. But then all of a sudden I went to one of the conferences we went to. I saw Scott Smith talk about podcasting, and he stood up there and gave a presentation. And he was teaching a podcasting class, and I saw his presentation. I just walked up to him and said, "Here's my credit card, dude, teach me." And so I invested in him, and he got me the technical pieces of it. But the bottom line is I had to decide, okay, what am I going to do? Why do I want to do a podcast? And the reason, so can I give you an insider secret? This is something, when I started the podcast, what I finally decided is I wanted to interview people like you, because I wanted to learn from you. And that's exactly what I do on the podcast. Is I have a podcast where I am sitting down with people I want to learn from. I figure if I can ask them really, really good questions and they have great information and I can learn something, my audience is going to get something out of it too. So I treat it like we're sitting at a Starbucks just like we are right here, except we're 1,000, 2,000 miles away.
At least.
And yeah, I'm sipping on my earth juice here, and you're sipping on your coffee or whatever.
My tea.
Yep, there you go, your tea. And, we're just having a conversation, just like we're doing right now. So that's one of the key things that I think is uber important, because some podcasts, have the formulaic, here are your 7 questions. Others are kind of free flowing. So I think the people who are watching this right now, I think they've got to think to themselves, am I teaching the person who's interviewing me something? And if they have that in their brain, then the audience will capture that as well. So you have to approach it as if, you are the expert and the person really wants to hear what you have to say. So I think that's a huge part of it. Would you agree?
I definitely agree. And actually, when I work with private clients, one of the criteria is they have to consider themselves a bona fide expert. And if that makes them uncomfortable, I really can't work with them at the level that I will be, because I want people that they know their stuff. Like I have fine artists I've worked with, photographers. One gentleman, he was a photographer for 40 years. I have a woman who actually wrote a book about women in the priesthood for the Catholic Church, and her book's coming out very shortly. Elderly woman who, phenomenal story. I have a woman who was a high fashion model with Yves Saint Laurent in her 20s, and now she's a spiritual author. And
wow.
Just it goes on and on. But what I look for are people who they know they're experts, but they may not know how to go about getting that visibility and approaching show hosts in a way that, yes, they are bringing value to the experience. So talk to me about what it takes when somebody approaches you to be on your show. What do you look for in a guest?
Well, the first thing I look for in a guest is that they know somebody like you. Here's one of the biggest things. A podcast is about that big of the piece of business that I do. It's there to promote my business, but it's not my full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people think that, podcasters have nothing better to do but to go out and research everything that they've got. So I get hit up with at least probably 10 to 20 people saying, hey, I've got a great guest, or I think I'd be a great guest. And, I talk about so-and-so. Okay, that's great. But the problem is, A, I don't know you, and B, I don't have time to research you. And C, I don't know you from Adam. I don't know if you could speak because I'm getting it via email. They're not sending, a video message or an audio message. So I have no idea who they are, what they do. And I don't got time for that. So the easiest way to get on a podcast is if you know Kathleen sends me, hey, Brian, I think that Joan would be a great guest for your show because I think she aligns with what you do. I trust you. I'm going to take you on. Now, let me tell you how somebody circumvented that. And the way he circumvented it, he came to me and said, hey, I've got a great thing I want to talk to you. And he was from Romania on top of everything else. And, he was very diligent in following me on social media. And I said to him, here's the thing you need to do. You need to follow me on social media. You need to comment on my stuff. And you need to show me that you understand what I'm doing and that, that would be something that would be interesting to my audience, whatever it is that you're talking about. So he spent the time to follow me and comment on things and actually engage with me. And I finally said to him, I said, okay, dude, you win, uncle. Come on. And he wasn't the greatest podcast guest in the world, but the stuff he had to say was so intriguing. It changed the way I do social media because he has a platform that he uses, and it was that good. And actually, not only did I sign up as an affiliate, I actually created a class around his product. I mean, it was that good, so, but he went and spent the time to build a relationship with him. So if you don't have that connection, the thing I suggest that you do is take the time to, friend them on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on wherever you can, engage with them, comment on their stuff, let them know that you're there. Because if somebody comments on my things in LinkedIn and I don't know who they are, I'll go look at their profile and see who they are and what they do. Now if they're your typical sales guru, I mean, no offense, they're a dime a dozen. There's a million people and there's social media gurus and social media strategists and all that kind of stuff. If they've got something unique that they're talking about, I might contact them and say, hey, tell me about your stuff.
I love that. I love that. And I, actually I do a private mastermind and I have no more than 12 people at a time in it. And these are the bona fide experts. And in the last session that I did some training, that's exactly what I taught them is find the influencers that you want to get noticed by and start following them, start retweeting their stuff, comment on their articles, and really build a relationship instead of, hey, look at how wonderful I am. And I've got the greatest thing since sliced bread and you need to have me on your show. So do you like what you see? If you do, go ahead and subscribe to this channel, hit the like button, and leave your comments down below. What did you most like about this video? By subscribing, you get updates of future videos that I put out. And by liking, what happens is it helps for this video and all other videos to go out over YouTube land. And so I really need you to subscribe to this channel, like the video, and leave your comments below. Now, back to the video. When somebody approaches you, do you require that they send you, you said you don't want to do the research, which I get that, because the bigger you are in the world of podcasting, the more people are going to hit you up to be on your show. And I'm sure in any given day, you might get 10, 20, 30 requests and people just like blasting you with stuff. What is the most appropriate approach? Once you know that this person, they say, okay, I know Kathleen or Kathleen referred me over, what should they send you or what's the process to really get your attention and they're a serious player?
What I do is if I get somebody recommended by you, I will get them on the phone. Okay. And I will do a 15-minute phone conversation. Tell me about your stuff. What's special about you? What's different? That kind of thing. I'll spend the 15 minutes with them if they come recommended. And that to me is the only way that I'm really going to know what they've got. Now, what I get out of that 15 minutes is I do, even though it's a 20-minute podcast, I know I've got 15 minutes worth of material. And the thing I'm looking for is, do they have a clear understanding of the points they want to get across? I can tell you the most successful formula I found is the 3-5. They've got 3 things, 5 things that they could talk about. Say your topic, my topic is content marketing, or LinkedIn or whatever it is. Because I'm a guest too. I understand I'm on the same boat, So I'm constantly being interviewed all over the world. And when I go into a subject, I'm going to say, what are the 3 things that I'm going to say? So when I'm talking to somebody, I ask them that real quick. What are the 3, core things that you can bring to me that you can get across in 15 minutes, or the 5 things, or whatever it is? And if they come in with good, solid information, if they're going, I could talk about this, and I could talk, and probably, it's like, I know where that's going. It's going to be, editing hell, because you're going to try to get 15 minutes and it's going to take them a half hour, and I don't want to spend the time to do it. So they need to have in their head exactly what points they want to get across and what's the point of the general thing. They're going to talk about podcasting. What's different? Don't tell me about what a podcast is. Tell me something unique about a podcast. Tell me something unique about being a male priest or a female priest in the Catholic Church, whatever it is,
Right.
I need to understand that so that I can prepare enough to ask the right questions and lead the conversation, so that I know I can get it done in the time frame I have, and that we end on a note leaving them wanting more, because that is the biggest thing about it. Podcasts are there to tease the audience with enough information they feel like they got something, but you always want them leaving with wanting more. Right?
I love that. Just like a first date.
Exactly. Yes.
We could go in a whole new direction with that.
Yes, we could, and that's why I want to date you again, Kathleen, and have you back on mine.
Okay, I can do that. And,
I'm sure you can.
I'm so thrilled to have you on my show, because it's interesting, because the people I'm interviewing, I have a criteria. They have to have had a show for at least a year or interviewed at least 25 people. And then to get the king of it all, he's interviewed 500 people. This is awesome. But
thank you.
One of the things that I do with my clients is I encourage them, and actually to go through my mastermind, they have to do this, is put an expert one sheet together. And
Sure.
I've had people say, well, I heard you don't really need one, but it's interesting because it serves a couple of purposes. One is it helps them to really solidify their message. It helps them to get down to those 3 points. I had one client that she put like 20 topics she spoke on, and I said, oh, no.
Right.
You pick the top 3, and you pick the, you really have to define what that is, so the host doesn't have to figure it out. But what's interesting, I had one gentleman I was working with, 80 years old, who had bought and sold several businesses, very successful man, and he works with entrepreneurs, teaching them, and actually small and mid-sized businesses up to $5 million in revenue, teaching them how to find the highest profit when they sell their business. So how to set their business up. And I said, okay, you need a one sheet. And he goes, well, I had so-and-so tell me I don't need a one sheet. And I said, I'm telling you, you're going through this program, you need to have a one sheet. I encourage you to put one together. So he put one together, and the first 3 shows that he did outreach to, all 3 asked for an expert one sheet. And it's like, whew, thank goodness.
Right.
So what are some of the, what's the material that people should have prepared just in case? Like, do they need an intro? Do they need questions? What do they need from your perspective?
Well, the most basic things that I always ask for is a bio, a short bio. I don't read the bio, I just want it it's for the show notes. So I don't sit here. I usually take it, I try to make it fun, and I don't, Kathleen Gage is an expert, that kind of stuff. I don't do that. So a headshot, a bio, and I usually ask for their address, because usually we're going to mail something back and forth, so they got to be willing to do that. But I want to take what you said one step further. And if they're going to do one sheet, I suggest they do a one sheet on each topic that they're going to do. So in other words, create a one sheet on, so for example, I get interviewed on LinkedIn a lot. I also get interviewed on content marketing. I also get interviewed on podcasting. So I actually created one sheet specific to each one of those that I could send people. And it's a one sheet, but it's not the graphical. It's just, here's what I talk about topics.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can do, but that's what I'm going to suggest. If you have multiple topics, create a different sheet for each one and find out what topic they're interested in and send them that one, because it gets confusing if you get too many in there. If they want all three, you can send all three, right? You know, or five,
and you can
whatever.
get the source file on the document. And if you want to send something that looks good, because we're very visual nowadays. So you had mentioned that podcasting is only one part of your revenue stream. Share with the audience, first of all, how can they get in touch with you if they either want to find out about your show or maybe your services?
Yeah, the easiest thing to do is go to Google and Google Brian Basilico, BrianBasilico. From there, you will find my LinkedIn profile, my podcasts, my blogs, everything. That way you can pick and choose the way that you want to connect rather than give you a whole bunch of URLs. It'll all be there. I am number one on everything in Google.
You are number one in my book.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes.
I appreciate that. Yes. And you're number one in mine.
And your wife knows it, so we're all good.
Absolutely, yes. And we've created this kumbaya friendship between all of us, which is awesome. Yeah, because of animals. We all love animals. That's our That's our bacon. Even though you do not, let's get real, you do not eat bacon, which is fine.
So correct. That is so correct. So I had a moral dilemma here. It's like bacon. Okay, fine, I can do that.
Right, yeah. Well, and when your audience finds out that BACON is an acronym, it stands for Building Authentic Connections Online Networking.
Okay.
Right. That's what it's.
Authentic
Connections Online Networking.
Online networking. I love it. Okay.
Yeah. So it's an acronym. It's that's really what BACON is, and it's a visual thing that gives some people the visual and the taste, and the other thing it's an acronym. So and that's exactly what we've done is we've continued our relationship online for years. We connect with each other. I see things happening with your dog Delaney, and then that whole saga that you went through, and that's how my wife connected with you. So real relationships are the best way to build your ability to get on podcasts, is actually spend the time to get to know somebody and get to know them and what they're into. And, that I think investing in people, they'll invest in you. That's really simple.
Right. So, tell us about your other business ventures. Like, okay, what types of services do you offer to your clients?
Well, I've got 4 levels of services. Your typical funnel. I've got just for the sake, I got the $10,000, $1,000, $110. I work with major corporations. There's Buddy Guy saying hi. He does this every day at 4:00. He likes to bark. So I do, large services where I go in and do strategy on online marketing, social media, LinkedIn for sales teams for big companies. I do one-on-one coaching for individuals specifically to set up an online strategy with websites and email and social and those kind of things. I do courses and online boot camps on everything from LinkedIn to Evernote to Planable to Canva, those kind of things. That's my kind of $100. And then I have a free weekly webinar that I do on LinkedIn tips at liforsales.com. So if you just want to learn the LinkedIn tips for free, you can come to that. If you want to get some courses, you can get that. If you want one-on-one coaching, you have that. And then, of course, I've got the big corporate thing that I do for large companies.
Nice. Okay. And tell me about the strangest show that you ever did. What was the weirdest?
Boy.
Hey, Kathleen Gage, I'm going to have to...
No. Well, I can tell you there's been numerous times in the course of the 5 years I've done it. There were 2 times where I recorded somebody who was so incoherent. I don't know why, but they couldn't make any sense. I mean, they had no concept of topic. They sounded great on the phone, and then when we started the podcast, it's like, this is going nowhere. I'm asking questions, I'm getting no answers. I'm trying to think of the strangest ones. I mean, they're all fun. Every single one is unique. I don't really have anything that's strange. I mean, I've interviewed some really incredible people. The last person I interviewed was somebody that was in the Israeli army in their special ops. And, she told me what she did. She'd have to kill me, but she had a really great concept, those kind of things. So there's nothing really strange, because I always lead the conversation and I always have a good time talking to people. There's always something to learn from somebody. I mean, your story from going from homeless to fantastic, I mean, that is just amazing. That's a great story. And that's what I love to do, is hear people's story of how they went from where they're at to, how they're going to where they are now and what's in the future, So,
Excellent. Excellent.
yeah, all kinds of cool things.
So how has podcasting changed your life as a host? And then on the flip side, as a guest, what has been the most profound change as a result of podcasting?
Well, I mean, it's the biggest thing it's done for me is make me an influencer. I mean, that's the key thing, is now people want to talk to me. Hi, bud. Yeah, my dog just loves to bark at 4. I don't know why, but that's
He's
his
saying,
thing.
"Can you influence my dinner?"
Exactly. That's exactly what he's saying. Is like, Dad, it's dinner time. Come on. But the biggest thing it's done is it's given me visibility with a lot of other people where I can call them up and have a conversation with them. People like Bob Berg. I mean, I just literally sent him a LinkedIn message, and he says, "Here's my home phone number. Give me a call."
Awesome.
It's gotten me huge speaking gigs. It's gotten me in front of larger audiences nationally. It's just and I think the most important thing about it is it lives on the internet. Evergreen. So when you talk about these things, I mean, I'm a hit in Malaysia, I'm a hit in Serbia, I'm a hit, in South Africa. I mean, everywhere in the world, my voice is heard and my concepts are taught, so that's I think
awesome.
Huge.
That's awesome. And so one of the things I really try to impress upon people is one episode of you being interviewed on an episode is not going to give you the result you're looking for. Where do you say the critical mass really happens? Where's the shift where people go from kind of really wanting to get their name out there to, okay, they've done X number of episodes?
Well, it really depends on the podcast that you get onto. It really depends on, it's a big difference between, the guy in his truck in Kentucky versus being on John Lee Dumas's show.
Right.
It's a matter of going up the food chain. It's like anything else. There's a speaker coach I talked to, Jane Atkinson out of Canada, and she talks about the rubber chicken circuit. You've got to go through doing free speeches locally in order to get national stuff. It's the same thing with podcasts. I mean, do the small do every podcast you can, I'm sure you've heard of Radio Guest List, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So anytime there's an opportunity, always ask to do it, because the bottom line, A, it's practice for you, and B, it's just your name on another internet website because you're going to be on that podcast. So there is no bad interview.
I have to tell you a funny story about a client where she joined my 100 club, and where I came up with the term 100 club. I was out running one day. You're a runner now, and I did my running this morning, and I get some of my best ideas after about mile 3. It's like
I know the feeling.
Great. And I was listening to Hal Elrod that day, and I was also listening to Lisa Nichols, and they were talking about when their books hit New York Times bestseller. And both of them, in addition to, I'm trying to think who else I had been listening to, but they all were talking about after they did their 100th episode. And I heard that over and over, and it's like, oh my gosh, that's it right there, the 100th episode. Right. And, a lot of times, okay, well, with this client, what happened was she joined my mastermind, and she said, yeah, I did this show, and I made $8,000 that I can directly link to that interview. And I said, well, how did that compare to other shows you did? She goes, oh, that's the only one I did. And I said, and you're not doing everything in your power to get in front of audiences? She's a fine artist who has retreats in New Mexico, very high level retreats. And she said she could directly link that $8,000 investment to the show she had been on. And this is what I really try to impress upon people, is you never know where your opportunities reside. So take whatever show comes along, because like you say, it's good. Wayne Dyer, he was discovered at 3 o'clock in the morning on an AM station with 3 or 4 people listening. Johnny Carson's producer heard him, So in closing, and I really would love to keep going and going and going.
Sure.
But I promised people that we would keep these short because we got little bite-sized pieces of information. But in closing, what is your best tip to somebody who's looking for podcast interview opportunities? Not to start a show, but to actually get the interviews.
Well, the best tip is to listen to other podcasts. And go listen to shows that you like, that go find the shows that you think you'd be a good fit for. You know, because that's the key thing is where do you think that your information is going to serve their audience the best? Because that's the place that will have you on. Especially if you say, I get this all the time, the fake ones. I'm a fan. I've listened to episode blah, blah, blah. Really? Well, who is your other favorite guest expert? You don't hear from them for 3 days. So really pay attention and actually follow podcasts and listen to them, and then follow the leader, and create those relationships. And you may or may not get on the show, but you're still going to learn something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Brian, this has been delightful. I really appreciate it, and I'm glad Buddy Boy was able to join us. And I know
yes,
dinner time. But again, you can do a Google search on Brian's name, Brian Basilico, and I will put that in the description. We'll have all sorts of great information for you. Brian, I absolutely appreciate you. I adore you. I adore your wife. I adore Buddy Boy. I just adore everything about you. So
thank you
so
much
for being on the show. Have a great day.
Kathleen, it is always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.